Good morning and welcome to Today in Putnam County, hosted by Putnam County Mayor Randy Porter, the show that takes a look at the events and what's happening all around Putnam County, as well as interviews with local, community, and business leaders. And now, sharing his insights and experience, here's Today in Putnam County with County Mayor Randy Porter.
Thanks, Philip Gibbons, and thank you for joining us today. Hope you're having a great weekend. Hey, this week's show, it's all about real estate and home buying. As you know, over the past few years, we've seen a major surge in our real estate market here in Putnam County. My guest this week, she's an expert in the field, Miss Amber Flynn Jared with the Jared Group and the Real Estate Collective. Good morning, Amber.
Morning, Mayor Porter. How are you?
I'm doing great. How about you?
Wonderful.
Did you have a good Christmas, New Year's?
Absolutely. Lots of Christmas, lots of New Year's, now ready to get focused on 2024.
Get back on it.
Yes.
I've known you for a while, Amber, and you've got a great story to tell, I think, and so we're going to try to do that this morning, and then in our second and third segment, talk about the real estate market. But you were an Army brat, I guess, military brat or
Air
whatever.
Force,
Air Force
yes,
brat.
Sir.
Traveled all over the country with your mom and dad. What brought you to Cookeville?
Well, once when my mom got out of the Air Force, we ended up in West Tennessee in a really small community in Gibson County. That's where I graduated high school and moved to Cookeville for tech, as many people do. I got the same story as a lot of folks.
Yep.
And really did not want to come, I'll be honest with you.
You didn't want to come to Cookeville?
I did not. I was like, this little bitty town. I mean, not that we lived in a big metropolis by any means, but I didn't, I'd never been to Cookeville. I'd never experienced what Cookeville had to offer. But I tell you, I hadn't been here, but a few months, and I began to fall in love with the people, the culture, everything that makes Cookeville what she is. And honey, I tell you, I planted roots and I planted them deep. And I tell everybody it would take Jesus himself to tell me to go somewhere else. And I'd say, you better double check with your dad. Because I absolutely love this place. We've made a home out of it. This is where we've raised our children, our grandchildren. And I just can't imagine being, and I've been everywhere. I have. I've been a lot of other places.
You've tasted all those other locations.
That's right.
Yeah.
And this is where we choose to live. So
yeah. Well,
says a lot.
I hear that a lot, and I have that same story. I was born and raised in Macon County, probably something similar to Gibson County. Never thought I'd leave there. Came to Cookeville, go to tech, and just thought, wow, this is just such a great place, and I think it attracts a lot of people. So made it to Cookeville, came to tech. Tell us a little bit about what happened then. You were a stay-at-home mom for a while,
I sure
right?
was. Yeah, that was, again, kind of a little bit of an unconventional journey into real estate and owning a business. Nobody in my family had ever been in business. It was not something that was on my radar by any means. Stayed at home with my kids, really made a nice home for our family and really enjoyed that time that I had with them. I tell a lot of my agents now that have got little ones, I don't know how they do it. I mean, it was never something I could have imagined, the craziness of our industry, mixed with, having a small family would certainly be a challenge. So my hat's off to those agents that managed to balance both. But at that time, that's where, I felt like I was called to be, and ended up very unexpectedly, abruptly got divorced in 2011. I don't know if you know this, but being a stay-at-home mom doesn't pay real well.
No, the salary's not very well.
So I thought, well, I'm going to have to figure this out. I'd never been on a job interview, didn't have a degree, or never had a resume. So it was like, okay, I don't know what I'm going to do, but we'll start putting one foot in front of the other. I had actually got my real estate license in 2009, so a couple of years before that, just as a hobby. I thought it looked fun, just to go out and look at a couple of houses. I sold 2 or 3 of them a year to some friends, close friends that might be buying, but it was certainly not something that was bringing home the bacon by any means, but little play money here and there. So it was really scary to think about going into 100% commission-based business as a newly single mom.
Yeah, and that had to be scary. And just being the single mom was enough on its own.
Sure.
But there's no guaranteed paycheck.
Absolutely not.
I mean, if you don't work, you don't.
And you're unemployed every 30 days.
Yeah.
You got about a 30-day lag time on a contract, and then it's you got to get up and do it all over again. And so I really just didn't, at that point, hadn't experienced a ton of success in my real estate journey. So didn't see that as really being a good foreseeable option for me. Went back to tech and finished my degree. Ended up working there in athletics department. Loved my time there, and had a door open in 2013 to be able to work at the realty firm, the real estate company I was working at the time, answering phones and just being the receptionist and working as an assistant to the owner. And that opened the door for full-time real estate for me. And so I decided, well, if we're going to do it, now's the time. And obviously it worked out.
God has blessed you for sure.
For sure.
To be able to do what you've done and started your own group. So the Jared Group. So
yeah. So that started out as a real estate team. Probably, I guess that was in 2016. I started a team in real estate, and it's kind of, most of the secular world doesn't understand all of the ins and outs of.
That's
real
why
estate.
We're here today. We're going to try to get them more educated.
Right. You got your solo agents that are kind of out there doing their thing, and then sometimes people will come along and take agents underneath them, under their wing, to kind of mentor and show them the ropes. And, I did that for quite a while. And I found that was really a passion of mine. I enjoyed the give back.
Yeah.
Real estate has changed my life.
Oh, absolutely.
And the trajectory of my entire family tree. And so I felt like it was a give back to the industry to be able to spend some time really training people and giving them the tools that they need to be able to succeed on their own real estate journey. And I got a ton of intrinsic value out of that. And so that sort of became the next segment, which eventually led to us opening the Real Estate Collective about 18 months ago.
To think where you started at the very bottom. I mean, you're answering telephones at the real estate office to come up to having your own group, and that's just amazing. And you have some amazing offices that you renovated over on West Broad in the West Side.
Yes, we've really enjoyed being a part of, a lot of real estate offices are going away from a brick and mortar presence, especially in small town USA. And I feel a bit of a mission, I guess, to kind of do that in reverse. We've really enjoyed being a part of a local community and having a presence in these small towns. Our banners are hanging in every school gym, and we're supporting all of the nonprofits in our area. Community development and community activism is huge on our list. In fact, we opened this company on two pillars: that we would be agent centric, making sure every decision that we make is in our agent's best interest, and making sure we were community minded. We never want to lose that sense of it. So we were recently able to plant a flag in Sparta right down the road, and renovate a building there and bring some freshness and some life to that part of the Upper Cumberland. And who knows who's next? But
well, it's definitely a growing and changing business. We're talking with Amber Flynn Jared with the Jared Group and the Real Estate Collective today. This week's show is all about real estate and home buying, probably one of the biggest purchases most people will ever make. One question I get, let's dumb this down now for me and some of our listeners that may not know, what is the difference between a broker and an agent?
Yeah, well, that's a great question, and I'll tell you, most agents don't know. Really, when it boils down to it on the state level, it's just another level of education. So you look at it as a difference between having a bachelor's degree and a PhD. And so when you sit for your broker's license, there's an extra amount of education that has to be done, an extra test that has to be passed, and then 120 hours of continuing education in the 3 years following that. So it's a big commitment to the education process for that individual. And then that enables you to sit as a managing broker of a firm if you ever so, desire to do that.
So you get to sit at the top and have people under
Correct.
you then as agents.
That's right.
Well, you've answered a question I've always wanted to know, and I think a lot of other folks do.
List.
That's right. Hey, you're listening today in Putnam County. We got to take a break. This week's show is all about real estate. My guest this week is Amber Flynn Jared. She's one of the professionals here in Putnam County that's an expert in this. We'll have more with her. Buying, probably one of the biggest purchases most folks will ever make in a lifetime, sometimes several times in their lifetime. I've got my guest this week, Miss Amber Flynn Jared with the Jared Group and the Real Estate Collective. She's one of our experts here in Putnam County when it comes to real estate. Amber, we saw real estate, take a drastic major change. When we go back, I think pre-tornado, pre-COVID, we had a good market.
We did.
Homes were selling good, and, it seemed like we were growing and everything. But then all of a sudden, so after the tornado and after COVID, real estate just went crazy, didn't it?
It really did. And I think it's important for us to note that we had a double whammy there with the tornado and COVID. So many of our colleagues across, the Southeast and, especially certain pocket states, were seeing this gigantic increase, in folks that were now able to work remote, and they could come and enjoy all of the benefits that Tennessee has to offer, while being able to work from home, but not only did we have that huge rush of influx of buyers, but we also had that coupled with, the devastating tornado, which eliminated
hundreds of homes.
Yeah. And so our inventory just took a huge hit. And so that's when we began to see prices going up as it does with supply and demand. And also, I think a bit of that was some market correction that probably needed to be done anyway. We were a little below market in our little pocket of heaven, here. And so that was kind of three, big events that we had going on that completely changed our real estate landscape.
Well, and with COVID, all of a sudden you got Tennessee does a pretty good job. You don't get in all the mandates and lockdowns and everything that a lot of these other states did. So all of a sudden you got California, New York, and all these states. You get these people are moving.
Absolutely.
They're getting away from those, but also high crime, homelessness, you name a whole list, high taxes, that whole thing. So the secret kind of got out. All of a sudden, and I watched the U-Haul stats. I don't know if you do too.
Yes.
But folks, U-Haul keeps these stats of where you pick up your trailer or your truck if you're moving, where you're leaving from and where the destination is. All of a sudden, Tennessee started climbing those stats.
It sure did.
We actually were number one. And I think this year we're maybe number 5 or 6 this past year, but folks were moving here like crazy. They were selling their homes for big prices in these other states. They're coming here and they're saying, I can buy this size house for $400,000 or $500,000.
They were amazed. They couldn't believe it.
And it pocked in the rest. I mean, crazy. And so talk about this. You saw the real estate market just go absolutely crazy with selling houses in an hour or two or so.
Absolutely. And because that's the part of it that I think that people forget is that the low amount of inventory that was there for the vast number of people, really and truly, we didn't have enough inventory for the folks that we have. We've got a pretty small footprint of where city sewer is for our area. And so we don't have tract builders. D.R. Horton was the first tract builder we've ever seen come in and now are just on their 3rd or 4th development, I guess. Whereas a lot of communities our size have been able to see builders come in and build vast majority of, build 100 houses in a couple of months. We've not had that.
No.
And so, you got lower inventory and then all of a sudden you get this influx of people who have cash, who have lots of cash. It's tough to compete. And that was some really, really difficult times, even for us as real estate professionals because, we work buyers too. So we might have listings. That's great on the listing side. But when you've got buyers and you're writing 4, 5, 8, 10 offers for people and they're getting, turned down and they're, getting outbid and they're having people that are coming and saying, hey, we don't need inspections. We don't need appraisals.
We just want it.
Yeah. For the average family in Putnam County who are getting a mortgage and just want something simple like a home inspection, it became really difficult to compete. And so those are some pretty tough days. So now with getting a little bit of the balance, even though nobody loves higher interest rates, seeing that calm down, again, with the rest of the country calming down and being on the other side, the COVID crisis, I'm grateful that we're seeing some balance being brought to it because you and I both know we couldn't handle double-digit, increases year over year like we were doing. It's just not sustainable.
Yeah, and you were seeing, lady that works in my office, they were selling their home and they put it on the market like on a Friday, and within 4 hours it sold. They had the other agent came in with her cell phone and walked through the house. Sir. These folks never actually physically saw the house. They were looking at it on a video and made a full cash offer right there.
Terrifying, isn't it, when you think about it? I know.
It's crazy. Then I start hearing these stories from these young local married couples. We wanted to buy a house and we put offers in on 16 or 18 homes and we get outbid every time and asking price and what it finally sells for, they're way over $50,000, $100,000 sometimes.
That's correct.
That was some crazy times.
It was really difficult and it was challenging. My kids are in that age group, so I walked it, out with my own children and, it puts it a little bit closer to home when it's, we consider our clients like family, but when it's your own kids walking through it really does hit you in the heart. And so you could see, especially brand new homeowners that were coming without a bunch of equity. It was a little bit easier if you had a house to sell, you had a ton of equity in that property. You could basically just do equity transfer, move up greatly in the house, but not see your payment change a whole lot. Well, for these people that were brand new to the market, without a huge down payment, those were the people that I felt the worst for, because they were the ones that were struggling. Affordable housing is such an issue, and it's so daunting. I'll be honest, I get almost overwhelmed with the thought of it, but I don't want to leave people without hope, or leave them discouraged. I mean, there still is a pathway to home ownership, which is by far most Americans' greatest wealth building tool. And there's lots of opportunities with, loan programs there's still 100% financing options out there. There's still ways that we're getting creative with buy downs. The people who can make those adjustments and pivot in a difficult market, are still able to get in homes. I mean, you look at 2023, which was by far, the lowest market that we've had in, several years, the first time we've taken a dip, and since probably before I even had my license, maybe 08, I don't know.
Probably 07 or 08.
And we had a 10% decrease in the number of transactions, that's really it, and so when you look at that, we are so blessed to live in an area that is so insulated from, I know we're listening to the radio right now, so don't take what I'm saying, but close out the noise, that a lot of the national news is trying to tell you of the doom and gloom. We are in the best place that there is, for this type of insulation and protection from what everybody else is seeing. I mean, there were a lot of markets that were 20 and 30% down. For us, I mean, really, and that's just number of transactions. Our volume was only down 9%, and the average home price actually went up $5,000. So if you did buy, in 2022, you're not necessarily upside down, which a lot of people, if you listen, goodness gracious, to the pundits, they're telling you, you're
the
drowning.
world is coming down
The sky is falling. But no, I mean, there's still a beautiful path to wealth building from just an average Joe like you and me through the American dream of home ownership.
That is great. So the market right now, are we back to pre-COVID levels yet, or
we're really close. Like I said, the market as a whole by the end of 2023, these are just brand new, hot off the press statistics that we were down 10% in numbers of transactions, which that can change, in a heartbeat in a community that sells, less than 3,000 transactions, and that's across the entire Upper Cumberland area. Okay, so that's even taken into your super rural counties that are around us. So when you look at that picture as a whole, our office was down less than 1%. I mean, it's negligible. I mean, that can change just based on, people's moods of the day, for goodness sake. So I think we are seeing and will continue to see through 2024, if you're going to ask me for predictions, here it is. I think that we will be back at, a stable level, healthy, percentage of growth.
We hope she's right. She usually is. We got more with Amber Flynn Jared. We're talking about the real estate market and home buying and everything here in Putnam County and the surrounding area. Real estate and home buying. We've had some crazy times in Putnam County and surrounding areas since COVID. Lots of folks moving here and shortage of homes with all the ones that got destroyed during the tornado. And we're talking with Amber Flynn Jared this week. She's our guest. She's an expert in the area from the Jared Group and the Real Estate Collective, and talking about the market and where we're at. So, Amber, when Melanie, my wife, when we got married back in 87, we bought our first home. Interest rates had been sky high, up in the 15, 16, 18%. We got our first house at 9 1/4 and thought we had set the woods on fire. And then we wound up a few years later building our first house and got 6 3/4 and thought we'll never see it any lower than that. All of a sudden, I mean, I'm hearing of people. I know of a lady that refinanced her house for like 2 3/4 or something.
Absolutely.
That really just opened the market wide open, didn't it, for a while?
Well, and I think that that's a big part, kind of like we were talking in our previous segment that I did not mention. At the same time that all of the other things were going on, those record low interest rates made it so much more affordable to buy, and that was almost free money, right?
It was,
it was amazing, and a lot of the folks that we're seeing selling now are having a little bit of that quandary of
they got this loan over here at 3%, and they're having to get a new one at 6%. So I guess it kind kind of chuckled when I hear some of these folks complaining that, oh, my interest rate's going to be 6 or 6.5%. And I think we never saw that before. That's just kind of back to normal.
Right. And if you take the 50-year average, it's about 7.5.
Wow.
So really and truly, we're about average, and now in the last month or so have dipped back below average, getting under 7% again. And I think that we finally have started to see people acclimating, that this is the new normal.
It's the reality, right?
Yeah, this is much more, again, sustainable, much more realistic, and probably what they're going to see over the next few years. All of the experts will tell you we'll never be in that sub 3, probably, maybe not even sub 4 for the foreseeable future,
right.
As long as any of us are going to be here anyway. And if we do, you better, refinance and buy all you can, or, whatnot.
Load the truck.
That's right. So I think people getting a little bit more comfortable with, hey, the real estate market's not going to crash. Things are not going to, be given away. We're not seeing a bunch of the REOs, which is bank-owned properties.
Right.
And we're not seeing a ton of foreclosures in our area. In fact, I pulled a list for a lady yesterday, and there was only one house in all of Putnam County that was on in foreclosure available for purchase.
Wow.
So we don't see that. What right now, so many of the sellers that we're working with still have so much equity. So if they do find themselves in a financial bind and they need to move a property, they can do that and probably walk away and put a little money in their pocket.
Yeah.
And so we're not seeing banks having to go in and foreclose on properties. Again, very, very insulated from situations like that. But I know we've seen a huge uptick. Our January, the numbers of transactions that we have on the books is already blowing, like almost double what we had last year in January. Wow. So again, I think that's a function of buyers feeling a little more secure.
Yeah.
I think I was just telling you in the break, I've touched 7 or 8 contracts in the last 24 hours. I mean, and this is January,
wow.
So seeing that kind of activity this early in the year, tells us that, people who have been sitting on the fence for 2023 are ready to kind of get back in the game. They realize, okay, housing prices are not going down. In fact, on average, they've gone up even in 2023. And so I can either continue to pay rent and pay for somebody else's mortgage, or, I can go ahead and tiptoe my foot back in the game. And hey, if their interest rates go down, we can refinance and learn to
still be good.
Yeah, keep going on.
Is the inventory any better with all these? I mean, you see Horton and Chad Gilbert, a lot of these developers that are building a lot of homes. Is it any better than what it was?
It is better. And I think some of that too. I mean, yes, thankfully we're so grateful for the new construction that is coming into the market, and also just seeing more folks who are willing to put their houses on the market right now, who I think in 2023 kind of, again, put the brakes on because of those reasons that we were just talking about. And so seeing an uptick in inventory is better for everybody, better for buyers because, there's less demand on the available properties that are there. So, I mean, I wrote a contract today for a guy that was able to get about $8,000 or $9,000 off of the asking price, even though it was a fairly new to market property where, again, 2 years ago, he would have had to go at least $9,000 over, you know? And so one thing to kind of think about is what are things going to look like if the interest rates come down? What is that going to do to drive prices, in our area? I mean, that's one of the things that we're beginning to talk about as a group and think about. It wouldn't surprise me if we see a significant decrease in rates, that we are back to multiple offer situations and seeing prices continue to go up. I don't personally think that the rates are going to drop that much.
I don't either.
Yeah, it is an election year. So you've got, I think the first half of the year, we'll see, some things that are good for that. Come probably late summer when things really get, heated and that presidential election heats up, usually people get a little bit like, well, let's just wait and see
what's going to happen. Yeah.
Let's just wait and see.
What's changed? Attitude of our younger generations is not the same as we were, I don't think.
Sure.
Our goal was always to buy a house and probably some land.
Yeah.
We wanted a few acres at least. The younger generation seems to have changed, that they don't want that land.
What we're seeing, I mean, not just in the younger generation of home buyers, but also in the younger generation of our staff, of our agents. One of the beautiful things and again, I've got kids that are in this age group, and so I'm probably a little more tender-hearted than a lot of my older friends that are like, oh, these whippersnappers. But one of the beautiful things that I love about this younger generation is that they have a deep affection for their free time.
Their time.
Yes. And they're willing to take less money for a better quality of life.
Yeah.
They want a property that's easier to maintain for a better quality of life. They don't want to spend hours out on a lawnmower, having to tend to fences and, necessarily animal. And we do have some of that, but as a large majority, they're looking to, spend their time, outside in their hobbies and doing things away from home, traveling or those types of things. And so they are tending more towards, a lesser maintenance type of a property. But one of the bigger things that I have noticed, I'm going to say, and this is definitely going to probably surprise a lot, and I would say the demographic of this audience listening to this radio show is probably more our age, more mature.
Yeah.
And I think one thing that would really surprise a more mature audience is, when we were growing up, the goal was to pay off your mortgage.
Yes.
You bought a home and you stayed in the home and you paid off your mortgage
as quickly as possible.
And that was the American dream.
It was.
And that's not the case with the younger buyer. And honestly, I think a lot of them are really educating themselves as to the positive benefits of leverage. They're looking at rental properties and what does that mean for long-term wealth building. There maybe some of the TikToks and whatnot that they're watching and listening to are full of a lot of, junk that's not necessarily great financial advice, but it is opening their eyes and piquing their curiosity as to what all is out there as far as, investing my money in the real estate space, not so much in a 401k or in stocks and bonds, but they're looking at the tangible asset of real estate.
And there's nothing wrong with that, is there?
Absolutely.
I mean, that's a mentality that we were always taught is you had your 401k, you were invested in stocks, you were invested in bonds and so forth. But being invested in rental property is a big deal going forward. And and that's what is it? I had a gentleman told me many, many years ago, Randy, buy all the land you can.
They're not making any more
They're
of
not
it.
making any more of it. And so, that's a truth. And he said, you'll have ebbs and flows, but it'll always continue to increase in value. Yes. And I look back on that and I wish I'd have listened. And I didn't, but it's...
you and me both. Well, and the beautiful thing is it doesn't have to be either or.
Yeah.
It can be and both.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, what we're seeing with this younger generation. And I love it. I want them to be planting roots here. And, it's one of the things that we talk about, as civic leaders a lot is how do we keep our kids here? How do we get them working here, staying here, putting those roots down? And that's a part of that journey. And it's an incredible, incredible honor to be a part of it for somebody.
It is, absolutely. Amber, I still got a page and a half that we didn't even get to today. We'll have to do another show.
Lots to talk about.
Talk about some tips and pointers and things for folks that's buying homes. So I appreciate you being on. And
Thank you for asking.
Appreciate what you do for our community. Not only do you have your group here, but you're a big part with the chamber and being involved in our community and schools. So thank you for doing all that.
I appreciate you. Thanks, Randy.
That's our show for this week. I hope you'll join us every weekend for Today in Putnam County on all the Zimmer family of radio stations. I'm County Mayor Randy Porter. I hope you have a great rest of your weekend, and may God continue to bless Putnam County.
You've been listening to Today in Putnam County, hosted by Putnam County Mayor Randy Porter.